the rapid and dramatic increase in Fed add of liquidity is a reflection that there's no appetite for U.S. government debt anymore around the world. Okay? Foreigners don't want U.S. debt anymore, not the way they used to buy it 3, 5, or 10 years ago. And the reason they don't have any appetite for U.S. government debt anymore is because the monetary elites in America are no longer believable, and we're getting increasing documentation that they're lying about the money. They're lying about everything financial in America, and this does not create an environment where people are going to feel secure buying U.S. government debt. And this is why the Fed has had to step in as the buyer of last resort to provide liquidity to the U.S. government debt market, because nobody believes or trusts U.S. government monetary authorities anymore. And the dollar, it's all a reflection of dollar rejection. Dollar rejection is here, and it's accelerating, and it will continue to grow. I literally think we are now on the eve of something seismic occurring with the dollar. I believe we are. Anyway, and I mean, at this point, I can't even say I hope I'm wrong. At this point, I actually I hope I'm right, because I think the people that have taken control of your country, they've got the rest of the world on their knees. And I don't think the rest of the world is going to remain on their knees forever. I think they're going to stand up and they're going to say no more. And I think this is coming now. I think it's gone from being like out there, way out there, to now like we got a good view of it in the front windshield of the car. And we're approaching it very quickly. Financially, it's nothing but lie after lie after lie after lie. There's dark money in play. Nobody wants to talk about it. We find out that all the gold audits are false and lies. Like, does America really think the rest of the world's going to continue taking dollars in exchange for their output when they can't say one thing honestly about anything financially as it relates to the world's reserve currency? You say we're borrowing from the future. We're not borrowing anything. We're stealing from our kids and our grandchildren. Okay? We're robbing them blind. We're not borrowing anything. We're stealing. And you know what? The whole notion of theft, stealing, ripping off my kids and my grandchildren is not something that I take lightly or sits well with me. And you know what? And it needs to be exposed.
Welcome back to Finance and Liberty and Reluctant Preppers. We have a wildly popular returning guest, Rob Kirby, the founder of KirbyAnalytics.com, a proprietary analyst with deep experience in both the financial markets and gold and silver, is back with us here again on Reluctant Preppers and Finance and Liberty. Rob, thanks for joining us again.
Well, top of the season to you, Dunnigan, and pleased to be with you again.
As we approach the end of 2019 and look ahead into 2020, it's been pounding on my head all this chatter that we see going on the news and in the media, and all these conflicting stories about what we have right wing, left wing, Republican, Democrat. We have impeachment going on. We got the people saying the best economy ever, and yet we got these economic reports that are coming out just looking worse and worse and worse. I wondered if we can just kind of clear away all that chaff and just look at what's real. What's the bedrock reality that we know on the ground? What are the fundamental facts that we're aware of about what's actually going on in the physical economy, what's actually going on about physical assets that countries possess, and what's actually happening if you ignore all their words and just look at what they're doing? People who are privileged to the most inside information at the corporate level or at the sovereign level and central banks. What actions are they taking so that we can understand what the real risk posture is that we're facing, and ignoring all of the so-called official story we've been hearing? So can you kind of build us up from a foundation of what you think the facts are on the ground in the physical economy and in the assets of nations and of individuals?
Yeah, Dunnigan, I'll do my best to give some insight where I see it. There are two major factors, and both of them, of course, deal with money, because money is the root of all evil, and following the money is the key to understanding much of what goes on in our world geopolitically or in geoeconomics. So we've spoken at length over previous interviews about the missing 21 trillion, which is an ongoing and present issue that is, I believe, starting to at least gain traction in the international community. The next thing that needs to be refocused on, and this is something that surfaced a little bit earlier this week by a European-based researcher, formerly with Bullion Vault, and he used to write under the name de plume of Koos Jansen. And he's published documentation a couple of days ago showing that the auditor of the U.S., the official auditor of the U.S. Sovereign Gold Reserve, who is the entity is the Office of the Inspector General of the U.S. Treasury. And he has shown and documented that they have materially lied about their audit procedures and their audits of the U.S. Gold Reserve between the years 1983 and 2008. And the vaults that house the U.S. sovereign gold reserve, namely 8,100 metric tons of gold that was confiscated from the American public back in 1934, that the sanctity of this gold is highly in question, because vaults that house this gold that we were promised and told that were never opened and were under continuous seal, over the life of these vaults have been opened again and again and again and again, and gold has secretly been supposedly re-audited for really dubious reasons. And this is all documented to the nth degree through information. I'm just gonna. His real name is Jan, and I can't pronounce his last name. I'm sorry, but formerly known as Koos Jansen, and he published a piece this week. You could find it by going through the GATA website, which is gata.org, and you'll find a post on the audit, how the audits formerly taken as the truth, and no one questioned the sanctity of audits on the sovereign U.S. gold reserve were taken as being truthful and believable. Well, we found out now that the auditor's been lying about the sanctity of the audits, and so really nobody knows anything about the state of the sovereign U.S. gold reserve. And this hits home with me in a very big way, because back in the time frame of 2009, 2010, I published a series of 3 articles explaining how tungsten gold, or tungsten bars coated in gold, were merged into the flow of the U.S. gold reserve. And I was basically, roundly laughed at by people from the mainstream, telling me back in that time frame that the sanctity of the U.S. gold reserve was perfect, and there's no way that this could have happened, because the sovereign U.S. gold reserve, supposedly, I was told, was under continuous and uninterrupted seal where the vaults hadn't been opened, and what I was claiming could not possibly have happened because the vaults had never been reopened from many years earlier when they had been sealed. Well, now lo and behold, now we find out that refutation of my work 10 years ago, the refutation is completely and utterly discredited. It's completely and utterly bogus. And now we find that what I put forward 10 years ago is now completely and utterly possible. And frankly, based on the fact that we've been lied to about the sanctity of the seals on the, and with no good explanation as to why this would have occurred, we now know that there's a very good chance that the vaults very well may have been open, and fake gold may very well have been, and I suspect probably was, substituted for the good gold that was stolen from the American citizenry, of course legally stolen, where the United States government cashed everyone out of their gold at $20, and then immediately basically doubled the value of it, revaluing it upwards 6 months after they confiscated it from the American people. Why the American people aren't up in arms about this is beyond me, Dunnigan. This is to me, could very well end up being the straw that breaks the camel's back in terms of foreign or global faith in the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. I think this is a very, very significant and ominous development that we've just learned about this week regarding the bogusness of U.S. sovereign gold reserve audits, because for all intent and purpose, they're all garbage. So there we are.
Yeah, when we talked about what's real, I mean, that's pretty foundational. Is you start from what are your bedrock assets that you have, and then what's your real financial activity on top of that, and then you go up from there. You don't just start pointing at, headline stock market indices that have been pumped up, or fiat currencies or anything like that. That's all just fluff and all.
Well, I think it goes, Dunnigan, I think it even goes further than that, because what it does is it basically brings into question anything we're told about the state of sovereign American financial condition. I mean, we're told by the Fed St. Louis, who keeps monetary aggregates, that the money supply is X, and yet, we're being supplied with documentation by the likes of Skidmore and Fitz that the existence of money, a lot of it being dark, could be factors bigger. I mean, the Fed claims to have a balance sheet which basically supposedly it gives us a tally on the money in existence of just over $4 trillion. But Fitz and Skidmore tell us that there's an extra at least $21 trillion that hasn't been accounted for in monetary aggregates, which means that the real money supply, instead of being $4+ trillion, might very well be $25 trillion, 5 times bigger. Okay, and then this week we learned that the sanctity of the U.S. sovereign gold reserve, thought to be the biggest gold reserve on the planet at over 8,000 metric tons, that the supposed audits are all bogus, and we've been lied to about the sanctity of the seals on the doors of the vaults where this gold is alleged to be housed. And just to be clear, the gold is alleged to be housed at primarily at Fort Knox, Kentucky, the Denver Mint, and West Point, New York. And these seals that were placed on the vaults when audits were done many years ago, dating back into the 70s, the seals have all been changed, which means the vault doors have been opened and they've been exposed. And we're finding this all out through the yeoman work of dedicated researchers who are basically refuting the evidence submitted by like the head of the office of the Inspector General for the U.S. Treasury. I think his last name is Thorson. This guy under oath said that these seals, were there was sanctity in the seals on the doors. And then we find out that the seals have all been changed time after time. And there have been unrecognized and unpublished audits or reopenings of the doors of these vaults where this gold is held, and no reasons are given why these sort of, let's just say, off-book audits or off-book openings of these vaults. And I mean, unless there's been nefarious work at play, because we've been lied to. People don't lie when there's no ill will or when nothing bad has occurred. People lie to hide things, Dunnigan. At least on my planet, if you're being lied to, there's a reason. You're being lied to because people are covering up for nefarious activity, and there's absolutely been nefarious activity conducted regarding the U.S. Sovereign gold reserve. So, my question is, does America really still possess any gold at all? I think the whole topic is highly questionable. Anyway, I plan to be resurrecting some of the material I wrote 10 years ago and incorporating the new revelations into work I did 10 years ago, and raising new questions and asking some very serious questions about the integrity or the believability of anything that U.S. financial elites tell us about anything regarding the world's reserve currency, or because we've been lied to literally about everything regarding what may or may not back the dollar, how much money's in existence, how much gold America may have. It's almost like we can't get a straight story from America about anything financial. And it's like, it's almost to a point now where anything we're told by America regarding their finances, we know it's a lie. Because their lips moved, they spoke. Because they cannot speak truth. They don't publish truth. They lie. We've been lied to. We've been lied to about how much money is in existence, and we're being lied to about gold. We're being lied to about everything financial. And it's sickening. And this is what's at the root of all the geopolitical tension in the world, because the rest of the world trades with America, and they settle their trade accounts in dollars. And the stewards of the U.S. dollar are lying on a daily basis about the true financial condition of America's finances. And this is something that won't stand. You can't lie to someone about financial transactions and expect them to continue dealing with you. It won't happen. That's where we are. It's unfortunate that that's where we are. But, this is reality. And you know what? The rest of the world, I think, is getting quite a reality check right now. And, to me, this has the earmarks of causing something very seismic with the dollar, very seismic in our global capital market structure. Because, the way it's been, in my view, can't be the way it continues going forward.
We're seeing already factual, physical actions being taken that correlate with what you just said. We've seen record purchases throughout 2019 by sovereign central banks of India, of Russia, of China, and now we have, Germany had asked for their gold back. Poland has been saying they want to amass their sovereign gold so they can demonstrate the strength of their country. Article just came out this week from Goldman Sachs saying that some of the wealthiest families in the world are amassing gold as never before. You've got the banks evidently not trusting each other. You mentioned this whole thing is underlying loss of trust, loss of trust, loss of trust, with this emergency repo actions being taken by the Federal Reserve for the past several months and going to be continuing for the next several months at least at levels that weren't even seen during the last financial crisis. And then you've got, as we've mentioned in the past, government economic statistics versus what comes out from shadowstats.com. So it seems that if we watch the actions and watch where the true money, where the precious metals are flowing, we're seeing both wealthy families and sovereign nations demonstrating loss of trust of each other and especially of the U.S. Can you go ahead?
Yeah. Well, just speaking to that, I mean, Dunnigan, the rapid and dramatic increase in Fed add of liquidity is a reflection that there's no appetite for U.S. government debt anymore around the world. Okay? Foreigners don't want U.S. debt anymore, not the way they used to buy it 3, 5, or 10 years ago. And the reason they don't have any appetite for U.S. government debt anymore is because the monetary elites in America are no longer believable, and we're getting increasing documentation that they're lying about the money. They're lying about everything financial in America, and this does not create an environment where people are going to feel secure buying U.S. government debt. And this is why the Fed has had to step in as the buyer of last resort to provide liquidity to the U.S. government debt market, because nobody believes or trusts U.S. government monetary authorities anymore. And the dollar, it's all a reflection of dollar rejection. Dollar rejection is here, and it's accelerating, and it will continue to grow because people are counting the lies that used to be on their fingers. Now they're counting the lies on their toes as well. And that's when the dollar gets the boot as the world's reserve currency, when people run out of fingers and toes to count the lies on. And these lies are well documented. These are not theories. These are facts. And America has a toothless media that refuses to report on reality because they're too hung up on trying to chase Donald Trump out of office. And I don't believe Donald Trump's hooked up in any of this for a minute. He's surrounded by traitors and treasonous, seditious, rogue fools who think they can lie to the public forever. And I think if Trump was actually informed and clued in to the extent of the financial lies and shenanigans that were going on, I think he'd do a dance on a whole bunch of people's heads and go crazy. And you know what? He's not owned. He's not owned by the establishment the way previous presidents were, and that's exactly why they fear him. They're afraid the way a free-thinking human being might think if they discover and understand the extent to which the world's been lied to. And this is why they fear him, and this is what they're scared about. This is why the deep state is involved, is and has been involved and complicit in the lies that I've spoken about. And these are the people that don't want to be exposed. And they know if they are exposed, an awful lot of them are going to be wearing orange jumpsuits and or hanging from short ropes. So their whole attitude is, we got to eliminate the guy who would react like a rational human being if he became aware of all this. We've got to get one of our puppets back in the Oval Office who is going to act as we tell him. Anyway, that's what I think's at the root of this. It's an ugly story, and it's not going away. And rejection of the dollar is accelerating and will continue. And, this is something that just can't go on forever without some serious, serious damage. and we haven't seen serious damage yet, but it's coming.
Yeah, let's play that forward a little bit. What is reasonable to expect in a real, where reality reasserts itself based on what we know to be physically true? What would be some reasonable scenarios that would be likely to play out in this rejection of the dollar? Already you've got the Fed having to step in and mop up U.S. bonds. Why can't they just keep doing that forever? What brings an end to that?
Because foreign rejection of dollars will accelerate. Dollars will return home. And dollars that return home, once global confidence in the dollar is completely and utterly flushed away, the amount of dollars that are held in foreign hands, which is an incredible amount, those dollars will return home looking to convert into anything physical or tangible that they possibly can get into, and that will touch off a hyperinflation in America. So what do I see going forward? I see the trust in the dollar collapsing, and I see America probably initiating, or the Fed probably trying to initiate capital controls to prevent the flow of dollars from coming home and impacting the domestic U.S. economy, because they know what has occurred, because the Federal Reserve has been complicit in all of this. This is, by the way, why the Federal Reserve resists an audit. It says that an audit would be terrible thing for free markets. We don't have free markets. What we have is a crime scene, and we've got one of the complicit actors in the crime saying, you can't come in here to dust for prints. We haven't secured the crime scene yet. So this is really what it comes down to, and this dog isn't going to hunt. You can't. There's a saying: you can pull the wool over the eyes of people some of the time, but you can't pull the wool over all the people all the time. Well, you know what? The Fed's had it in a very good way. The Fed and Treasury in America's had it in a good way for a long time, because they've been pulling the wool over everyone's eyes for a long time. But you know what? Those days are coming to an end, because you know what? Too many people, the world's become a much smaller place, Dunnigan, and we have new ways of communicating. The kind of crap you could get away with in the 80s and the 90s before the internet got developed and before communication flowed freely. You could get away with these kind of shenanigans because the opposition or let's just say the truth tellers weren't well enough connected or linked together. But you know what? We're living in a different world now, and when you've committed diabolical acts of criminal intent, hiding it from the rest of the world becomes a much stickier wicket today, with instant messaging, social media, and a free and independent media, a real media that reports on real issues and real events in the world. It becomes a much more difficult thing, and of course you play a big part in that. Reluctant preppers, you guys are bringing truth to the world. There's more truth in a day of reporting from reluctant preppers than there is in 6 years of garbage that comes out of CNN or CNBC, who are all managed and are all reading off teleprompters and telling people what the deep state wants them to hear. But lo and behold, you know what? There's a saving grace, and it's called the independent media. And you're part of it, I'm part of it, and countless others, that I've read over the years, they're all part of it too. But you know what? We're just sick and tired of being lied to. That's all it is. We don't have I don't have an axe to grind with anyone. I just get sick and tired when I know I'm being lied to.
I have to seize that opportunity when you mentioned independent media. We're only as independent as for one thing, there's a physical nature, there's a financial nature. The physical nature is if people are expecting to use centralized communication giants, these media giant e-media giant companies to be the way that we are so confident that we can reach each other, there are increasingly severe restrictions being placed and policies being put in place, especially as each election year approaches, that kind of thing, of what's defined as fake news, what's going to be taken off not be able to find the searchable, things that are going to actually lose their accounts, that kind of thing. We've just yesterday and today is Thursday, December 19th, 2019. Yesterday we posted an interview with John Whitehead, a constitutional attorney from the Rutherford Institute, and it's been demonetized by YouTube, so we are unable to get any support for our work here from things. So the more hard-hitting, the more we come close to the nerve and bringing on more guests that really tell us what's going on, the more difficult it's going to be for us if we're dependent on those corporate-controlled sources. So that's where you come in, everyone, as supporters by going to patreon.com/reluctantpreppers, and for any amount per month you can support us and make sure that we keep this mission going of expanding, as well as, of course, like, subscribe, and click the little bell icon so you get announced of new issues that we come out with. But Rob, something else you just said, you talked about how that plays out. Mike Rovero from What Really Happened has been on several times talking about all wars are bankers' wars, and that so many times in the past when foreign or international sovereign nations have decided we're not going to play ball anymore with the U.S. We're not going to use the petrodollar anymore. Specifically, it's been the start of a regional war then, and people put back in their place. So is that the end game of this? Is that if you don't play nicely with the U.S. dollar, we're going to bring the aircraft carriers into your seas?
Pretty much. That's what's been occurring, Dunnigan. And just to verify or confirm what you just said, independent media people, if you don't support it, it'll be gone. So, if you want to know the truth, people have to support independent media. Otherwise, you know what, everybody, just take your sleeping pill and watch CNN and go back to sleep, because you're not going to get the truth from them. They have no interest in reporting the truth because they answer to a different master. They answer to the deep state, okay? And the deep state are the people that are robbing us all blind on a daily, weekly, yearly, and lifetime basis, because that's what they're in it for. And, where does all this end? There's a reason why people, use cliche statements like follow the money. Most problems in the world are related to money, or let's just say dishonest commerce. And, what we're outlining and talking about here right now today in this interview it's about the money, and and the sanctity of the money, and who's in control of the money and what they've done to the money. And what's been done to the money is diabolically evil, and it's been perpetrated by individuals who have been put in really, really enormous positions of trust. And these people have betrayed the public trust in a diabolical way. And these people do not deserve any respect at all. A lot of them should be hanging from short ropes. A lot of them should be wearing orange jumpsuits. And I mean, it's absolutely sad that we have a media that 50 years ago would have been at the front of this train, trying to divulge what had happened. And it's amazing how the media has been bought off and how they've been subjugated to being lackeys for these diabolically evil people. And I mean, it's really sad and sick. But I mean, this is the state of our world today. And it's very, 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 it's difficult to stomach, and it's difficult to put up with. And to be honest with you, anybody who thinks, like, if anyone thinks that I get, get a kick out of reporting this, I want to vomit. I want to vomit knowing what I know. I wish I didn't know what I know.
It's funny because that's the reason I got into this too. It had nothing to do with wanting to do this. It was when I became exposed to some information I saw on another channel. Well, it was Finance and Liberty that we ended up merging with, about the lack of integrity of the U.S. dollar, the lack of integrity of the information we were being given about. It was exactly what you just described. Led me to have grave concerns about how can I possibly take care of my family. How can I possibly provide? How can I possibly fulfill my role as protector and provider for my family when everything I'm building this on is just a pack of lies? And what can I do to bring truth back into that? So here we are.
Yeah, Donegan, for me, I just don't want to leave this mess to my kids and grandchildren.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, because Ray Dalio talks about a simple way of looking at the credit cycle. He says whenever we do this going through a normal credit cycle where they bring easier and easier money, and you're basically pulling economic activity from the future into the present to make things look more flush than they have a right to be right now. But what you're doing absolutely by doing that is you're borrowing from future activity, and you're going to create this trough. And Alistair McLeod, who we recently had on, says we are late in the credit cycle. So is that accurate in your experience, that this easy money period absolutely pulls economic activity forward, and it's creating this Grand Canyon, this gulf that our kids and grandkids are going to have to live with?
I almost agree with you, Donegan, but I disagree on one point. You say we're borrowing from the future. We're not borrowing anything. We're stealing from our kids and our grandchildren. Okay? We're robbing them blind. We're not borrowing anything. We're stealing. And you know what? The whole notion of theft, stealing, ripping off my kids and my grandchildren is not something that I take lightly or sits well with me. And you know what? And it needs to be exposed, because there's a lot of these globalists don't have kids. Okay? And big reason why a lot of them don't have kids, because they don't give a damn about their legacy. They don't give a damn about what they leave behind them. And this is why they don't want to have kids. An awful lot of globalists, the vast majority of globalists are kidless. You know what? And, a lot of them don't deserve to be here, because what they are is filth. They're the worst of what humanity has. And these are the people that are controlling, the financial affairs of the world. And it's really, really sad. But you know what? Light is being shone on this, and rejection of this system will continue, as I said, and it will accelerate. And I mean, we're in a downward spiral here. And the only thing that probably bothers me even more than the thought of how badly humanity's been robbed is that these people basically control the they control the nuclear toys. And these people are so sick, they are so perverted, they actually believe they can win a nuclear war. They think they can actually win a nuclear war. They think they can cause a nuclear war and scamper off to their bunkers, and then emerge from their bunkers after they thrust the world into some kind of a nuclear conflagration, and come out and be the masters of the radiated mess that they leave in their wake. They are sick in the head. They are sick in the head for what they've done, and they're sick in the head for what they believe they can do. And you know what? They all need to be relieved of their duties, because they're evil people. And what they've done so far is diabolical, and what they'll do in the future will continue to be diabolical, and won't be in mankind's best interest, period. So, reality check time. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Well, we do need to look at what we can do to empower ourselves and each other. And I think you've mentioned a couple of these things already. You've talked about supporting independent media. You've talked about unplugging from false sources of information and plugging into truthful sources and doing your diligence. What other steps can people take to make sure that, I guess, that like in the Dickens story, the Christmas Carol, we've seen this specter. So you've laid out you're the spirit of Christmas to come, and you showed us how grim things can look in the future if these shadows remain unchanged. What can we do to change these shadows so that our children and grandchildren don't have to live in that post-nuclear mess?
We can pray to God. We can pray to God and repent, because where we're at, Dunnigan, is not a bright place, and we need forgiveness. We need to be forgiven, because we're going to need divine intervention to escape where we are today. And I'm Christian. I believe in God, and we need God's help. We need God's help now. And I mean, you can do the prudent things with your own resources, with your own money. You can try to divest or allocate, or spread your resources around. You can own some gold. You can own some, you can own some tangibles. You can own some storable food. You can prepare the best you can. But probably more than anything, everybody should be in prayer, because you know what? We all need it. We all need it, and humanity needs prayer right now. And that's kind of sort of where my head's at, and probably appropriate for this time of year to be speaking in those terms anyway.
Just reiterating the reality of what you're saying about the season. In the Christian calendar, Advent is the end of the year, of the church year, but it's also experienced as the end of time and awaiting for the coming of the next phase of reality that comes after this era. So it is quite appropriate, and I really appreciate, and our viewers appreciate, Rob, they always ask to have you back on, and just thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to be so open and transparent and honest with us about what really matters, and always joining us here on our channel on Finance and Liberty and Reluctant Preppers. Our viewers deeply appreciate it, and so do I. Thank you, Rob.
Been my pleasure.
They say the stock market crashed today.
Yeah, I heard that.
Sounds like people's retirement accounts and savings accounts are going to get bailed into the banks.
Yeah.
Looks like pension plans and Social Security are going to get suspended too.
I know.
Sure, I'm glad we decided to put our money into gold and silver instead.
Me too.
Get your gold and silver and support this channel at goldsilver.com/?AFF=RP. Reluctant Preppers provides educational awareness and commentary only. Opinions expressed do not constitute personalized financial advice. Viewers are encouraged to do their own research and seek qualified personal financial consultation before making investment decisions.